Hello, everyone, and welcome to another virtual visit. I'm David Mustonen, Director of Communications for the Dearborn Public Schools. Joining me, as always, our Superintendent, Dr. Glenn Maleyko. Glenn, how are you doing today?
Doing very well, very, very well. And again, the weather keeps coming nice. So my wife wants me to get that. We have a pool, get it opened. I don't know if we'll be swimming yet, but my wife's name is Joanne, and so is Joanne Harris. And I just realized that someone named Joanne scheduled me for Saturday without me knowing that I'm putting the pool. So having said that, also trying to balance with the family and my son going out for a rollerblade or bike ride and those kind of things. So I just want to mention to all the families out there. I know everyone's dealing with stress, but it's important to have those family time. My family, there's a family of four. I have two teenagers, and we try to have dinner a couple times together a week, if not more. And then Saturday night is some family activity, some family event. Last week it was a Disney game we played, and I won, of course. I'm not going to let my son or my daughter beat me, but anyway, we're not competitive at all, David. So, but
Oh,
I'm
no.
just, not never, never. But anyway, it's all good because it's just part of what we're dealing with, and those are good stress relievers, and it's good to have that family time. So I just want to put that out there as we start on this show, and as I, say I'm a parent, as an educator, I feel for the parents that have now become educators in their homes. So.
Absolutely, Glenn. You're right about that. It's important to stay connected with our families and, keep those activities going and keep some family fun time in there as well. Somebody who has quite the family. I believe there are four siblings or four children in his family. Is our executive director of special populations, Mr. Mike Esseily. Mike, thank you for joining us today. Yeah, how are things going in your family situation?
Well, first, thank you for having me. And you know what? I think we started off by having a conversation before we started. There's never a dull moment, that's for sure. My family dynamics, like I said, the positive thing about some of this is I have been getting able to spend a little bit more time with them. I have four children, all under the age of 9. Two of them are school aged, and two of them are preschoolers. So it's been adventurous to say the least. But again, we're getting some family time in. We try to do the bike rides and everything else. I have a daughter right now who's 4, turning 5, Nora, who insists that she always rides her own bike. We have a little bit of one of those carriers or one of those wagons on the back of my bike, but she doesn't want to do it. She wants to be all grown up like her older siblings. But nonetheless, we're trying to make the best of everything. And, we're blessed and fortunate to be healthy at this time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mike, we ask you to join us here today. I mean, you've got some big responsibilities, special populations, but today we're going to specifically talk about our special education students. They're part of our continuity of learning plan. It was very clear that, we had to continue to deliver service to those students who really are, most at risk, most in need of some of the services that they can only find in a public school. There are a lot of other options for schools, but it really public school does a outstanding job of meeting the needs of those students. And you and your team are just continuing that service. Although I know it looks a little different, but how are you guys going about continuing to meet those needs of our special education students?
Well, David, thank you for asking that question. And I can tell you this, that our entire staff, from myself all the way to our teachers, our social workers, our psychologists, our speech pathologists, our occupational physical therapists, have been working really, really hard to ensure we're meeting the needs of every single student. This kind of started with, initially when we were doing the enrichment phase, we developed a plan to where we wanted to make sure that, each student was accounted for with whatever specifically that they needed to continue their learning. When we did get the continuity of learning plan approved, what we ended up doing was we developed contingency plans for each of our students with IEPs. Now, a contingency plan doesn't take the place of an IEP, but it's really in addition to the IEP, considering that the learning does change when you go remotely from your typical face-to-face instruction. And part of those contingency plans is looking at each individual child, what they need to ensure that they're accessing the continuity of learning plan. Whether it be what technology they need, what assistive technology they need. So a lot of our students we're mailing and we're delivering packets to them because that's just the best mode of instruction for them. What type of therapies do they need? Is it video conferencing? Is it more so the teletherapy? So all of those things were questions that we had to have answers for, and they were done in collaboration with the families as well, because it truly is a partnership. Education is always a partnership. With special education, it's especially a partnership. And we wanted to make sure that, those transitions were as easy, as seamless as possible. Although knowing, and I know Dr. Maleyko has mentioned this, that we're not going to replicate or we're not going to replace the face-to-face instruction, but we wanted to do everything we can to at least, measure up and continue to meet the needs of our students.
Yeah, and Mike, I appreciate you giving that explanation. I mean, this is one area where I appreciate your leadership in the district and the role you've taken. And you're at my executive cabinet meetings every week, making sure that the special ed kids and the special populations and the ELA, they get their proper advocacy. And so you do a great job with that. So I appreciate your leadership for your team. And so it's good to have you on that executive team. You've been, a real great addition over the last half year. And, given the situation, this is one area where I probably, and I know you probably are as well, because you're passionate about your students. I was really worried, especially, for all students, but special education students especially, because this is where it becomes even more challenging depending on the disability. And so when I talked earlier about being a parent and having to take on, a teaching role as a parent, with special education parents, that is a whole nother aspect that they need to provide, that, things that services that they may have relied on for their children, they no longer have direct access, and or the resources are more difficult to get to them. And so that's an area that was concerned. That's why I'm glad in the continuity plan, it was actually one category that had to be addressed. It was required under the governor's plan, and you made sure that it was addressed well. Having said that, I know you've looked at different ways to get, materials and equipment and other things to students. How is that going, and what are your thoughts on how it's been, and you possibly some concerns that you may have moving forward?
Well, some of our students do rely on different equipment and different materials that we usually have within our school setting. So just recently, actually, our leadership team kind of met and we discussed this with the teachers as well. And we've developed a list of everything that our students may need. Whether it's some of the physical equipment that they may need, some of the technologies they may need. And we're currently right now developing a plan on either one. We're having some of our families who are able to come pick up some of those materials from the school. Or if not, we're working very, very closely with the transportation department and plan on to start delivering some of those equipment that they may need. And some of this equipment is rather large, like our standards, and it's heavy. So it may be difficult for our families to pick up. So that's why we're really looking at every single possibility to ensure that they have access to some of this equipment that's necessary and needed for the child.
Appreciate you doing that, Mike. And again, because we're concerned, and I also know that your staff does an outstanding job, and it's challenging for staff. You've also set up some supportive, networks for families, right, to deal with possible situations they're dealing with. I know they can reach out to your staff, or you've had that hotline, right? These different aspects. So how is that going as well?
Yeah. So our social workers and psychologists are doing a really fine job at reaching out to our families who are in need. I can tell you at the early onset of this entire situation, I was getting emails about, hey, how can we help? Whether it's with food delivery, whether it's with delivery of items or whatever it is. And our social workers truly went above and beyond. And some of our teachers who missed their students were delivering specific things and just doing drive-by just to kind of, make sure that they have that contact. Now just that face-to-face, connection with them. Now, on the opposite effect, we also know that the impact this can have for some of our students, but also all students. Being quarantined isn't an easy thing, especially for some of our families or some of our students who deal with the anxieties and the stresses. So what we did was we developed a social emotional line. This line is always available for all families and students in the district to call. There's both English speaking and Arabic speaking. What they do is typically they'll leave a message, and one of our mental health experts will call back the family and just provide them with some guidance or whatever support that they would need at that specific time. And we're very, very happy. We have had some families that have reached out, but I do want to say that, we do want as many families as possible reaching out who need the support during this time. It's completely confidential, and we're just here to help and continue to move things a long way, because we know how challenging this could be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm going to share that number right now. It's 313-827-8500. And you also have an email set up at
Correct.
dss@dearbornschools.org. So again, that's 313-827-8500, or an email at dss@dearbornschools.org. So thanks for sharing that, Mike,
Of
and
course.
for, again, the great work that you and your staff are doing. We talked about it before, but we really appreciate staff that are stepping up, and your teachers are, your entire staff is, your team, your administrators, and it's Teacher Appreciation Week going into next week. So we appreciate our special ed staff and our special population staff.
Absolutely. It's also Speech Pathologist Appreciation Month as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So we want to mention them too. And I know
There you go.
they've been extremely busy, just working with groups and making sure that the speech and language needs of all of our students are being met during this month.
Wonderful.
Great. Mike, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us. I know you and your team do such a great job there of providing those services to our families. I know April's Autism Month too, and we kind of miss that. We always have a great event over at McCullough Eunice in partnership with one of our local organizations. And so we kind of missed that this year, that we weren't able to do that. But I'm sure next year we'll be right back
Hopefully.
there
Yeah,
again.
Blue Hands United does some great things. And I will tell you this, the community is coming together. I just saw recently that they actually had an autism awareness drive-by last week, I believe, where they were just driving by houses and just going through the community, continuing to raise that awareness. So we do see great communities coming together, and they're being very creative with how they can, continue to celebrate or bring awareness to specific things.
Great. Great. Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for being part of the show today. Dr. Maleyko, thank you for once again bringing us all together here like you do all the time on our virtual visits. I know you miss being out at the schools and
Yeah, absolutely.
being with the students. So we will continue to do this virtually until we can do it once again in person, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to have to, when we do get back, those selfies and those vision sign pictures, we're going to have to find a social distance mechanism to do that. So we'll figure out a new way. And we love the new vision sign that you designed in your team with the Learning Continues. So that was great. And I'm glad that we're getting this session done in time, because next I'm going to be a parent and I'm going to check in on my son and check in on his homework and give him some help with that he needed with the science. And later on, we're going to have fun and go for a nice bike ride. So I hope everyone else can kind of do the same and enjoy the nice weather.
Thank you, Dr. Maleyko, for sharing some information with us and for joining us and bringing us all together here as you always do. I want to thank everybody for stopping by and visiting with us today. And we hope that you will continue to stop by and visit with us on our virtual visits.